Okay, we started answering some of the questions that we began this Maimer with. The Maimer started by talking about the verse, Es Hashem Amarta, that you have made Hashem into a unique entity, and Hashem has made you into a unique entity, which the Gemara says that it connects with the Tefillin that Hashem wears and what we wear. We wear Tefillin that praise Hashem, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Echad, Hashem Echad, that Hashem is one. Hashem wears Tefillin that says, Mi Kam Yisrael, Echad Ba'aretz, who's like your people Israel, one nation on the earth. So the Gemara says what? Hashem's praise is praising us. Tefillin is supposed to be your dignity, something that elevates you, makes you more dignified. Why does Hashem's Tefillin say how great the Jewish people are? The answer is yes. The praise of the Jewish people is what elevates Hashem. Which the Rebbe explained that, and now we understand a bit deeper what that means. What it means is that through the Jewish people praising Hashem down in this world, it actually elevates Hashem, makes Hashem into a unique being. How so? Because the power of Tefillin is to take that which is within intellect and bring it down into emotion. That intellect, the level of seichel, should come down into emotion and direct emotion. Or even higher than that, a deeper explanation was that taking that which is beyond intellect and bringing it into intellect. There were the two interpretations of what Tefillin are. And when we praise Hashem, and particularly when we put on Tefillin, it causes Hashem's light that is beyond the world to come within the world. The light that is in intellect to come into emotion, or the light that is higher than intellect to come within intellect. And really both happen. So we're drawing down a light that is higher than Ishtalshelus within Ishtalshelus. And that's what it means that we make Hashem into a unique entity in the world, meaning we draw down more divine light into the world. That Hashem is more one with the world. That's the power of putting on Tefillin. All mitzvahs do this, but putting on Tefillin particularly does this because Hashem tzilcha. Hashem is your shadow, which means the movements you make in the physical world are reflected by Hashem in the spiritual world. When you put on Tefillin, which for you is a drawing down of intellect into emotion, and even higher than that which is beyond intellect within intellect, when you put on Tefillin, so Hashem also puts on Tefillin. He keeps the mitzvahs too. And so every time we put on Tefillin, it causes a flow of divine energy to come from beyond Hishtalshelus into Hishtalshelus, from intellect into emotion. And so that's what makes Hashem a unique entity in the world, that His divine light is revealed. But more than that, and what we're going to add now, the Maimer is going to add, is that it's not just from higher than intellect into intellect, and from intellect into emotion, but it's all the way down here into the physical world. That's where this light comes. It comes all the way down to the lowest levels. It's not just a supernal move that is being made, but that light that starts above Ishtalshelus, going into Ishtalshelus, through intellect and emotion, comes all the way down to the physical world. That's where the revelation comes. That's in Zayin. So look at letter Zayin there at the bottom. So we could add to this. Through drawing down Kabbalah's oil, an acceptance of the yoke of heaven, which within the human being is drawing down an energy that is above Ishtalshelus. We explained this last time, that Kabbalah's oil means accepting the yoke of heaven. Or in other words, doing what Hashem wants no matter what. I am committed to Hashem no matter what. What does that mean? That means you're tapping into the etzem nefesh, to the essence of your soul, that just wants to do what Hashem wants. What the avoid of Kabbalah's oil means that even though my mind has all types of calculations, what makes sense to me, what appeals to me, what I think, my heart has all types of yearnings, what I want, what I like, what I'm into, what I'm not into. And though the heart and mind may not be in line with the divine will, but the etzem nefesh, the essence of the soul, is always in line with Hashem, always wants to do what Hashem wants. Kabbalah's oil means drawing down the etzem nefesh, your inner desire, what your soul really wants is to do Hashem's will, to draw that down, to subjugate the mind and the heart to the etzem nefesh.
What's the difference between Sirus Nefesh and Kabbalah's oil?
Well, they have similarities. Sirus Nefesh is more talking about the doing of it. Kabbalah's soul is the acceptance of it. You're accepting the yoke of heaven, which means, and that's what it's called Shibur Lev V'Mayach, subjugating your mind and your heart to the essence of your soul, and therefore to Hashem. Instead of doing what you think or you feel, you do what the essence of your soul wants, which is Hashem's will. And that is exactly what Tefillin is. Tefillin is the heart and mind being subjugated to Hashem, drawing down the etzem and nefesh. So, in a way, your hishtalshelus, your system, your being is mind and heart. That's your conscious being. Your etzem and nefesh, the essence of your soul, is higher than hishtalshelus, higher than your conscious being, a deeper self. So when you draw down your deeper self, that your etzem and nefesh should override your mind and your heart, that is exactly the same as Hashem drawing down the light that is above hishtalshelus into hishtalshelus, above creation into creation. And because Hashem is your shadow, so the way you do it is the way Hashem is going to do it. If you draw down the etzem and nefesh to override your heart and mind, you subjugate your heart and mind to the etzem and nefesh. So then Hashem draws down a light that is beyond hishtalshelus into hishtalshelus. So, let's start again. Through the light that is drawn down, the energy that's drawn down through Kabbalah Soul, through you accepting of the yoke of heaven, which is l'mayla mishtalshelus sheba'adam, which is the higher than hishtalshelus within a person, b'hamoich b'alev, and you draw that down into your mind and heart, that your mind is committed to the divine will, that your heart is committed to the divine will. That comes down, when you have Kabbalah Soul, that influences all of your faculties. Even the lower faculties of action. Kabbalah Soul is not just a nice, lofty thought. It means you're going to do it. You've accepted the yoke of heaven, that you've subjugated your mind and heart to the divine will. So now your etzem and nefesh is going to determine what you do, even with your physical body, your actions, how you live your life. It's going to be translated all the way down into the lowest faculties of the human being. So it's not just your mind is now in agreement with your soul. It's not just your heart, but even your body, your physical body, your actions. You're going to do what Hashem wants. So it's translated all the way down into the very physical, lowest faculties of your being.
You're saying when you accept the yoke of heaven,
Yes.
that is what happens?
Yes, that's what it means.
All the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, accepting the yoke of heaven doesn't mean some big ideal. It means living a life devoted to Torah, devoted to Hashem's will. So the way you act, the way you move, the way you talk, all of that is going to be in accordance with the divine will. The way you eat, all your physical moves are according to what Hashem wants. So this is reflected in the Tefillin as well. Because we said the Tefillin is the subjugation of the mind and the heart to Hashem, to the etzem and nefesh. Okay, but that's mind and heart. That's your inner, elevated, higher faculties. How do we see in the Tefillin that it's translated into the very lowest faculties as well? That's why it says in Halacha that the straps of the head Tefillin need to dangle down all the way down to below the belly button, below the belly area. That's how far the straps have to dangle. That's what it says in Halacha. In some places it says until the belly button, but in Chassidus it's often brought that it has to go down even to the legs, towards the legs at least. That's how long it has to be. The minimum is to the belly. So what does that represent? So now it's obvious what it represents. That even the parts of your being that are the lower half of your body, that also has to be nullified to the divine will. Not just your upper faculties, but your lower faculties as well. Like it says that the body is generally divided into two halves. That is, and around the belly is where the division is. The upper body has the higher faculties. The lower body has the lower faculties. So the heart and the mind are in the higher part of the body. That's the higher, more elevated faculties of the being. Whereas the lower body is the lower faculties, more lowly and physical. The idea that the straps of the Tefillin Shel Rosh have to dangle all the way down to past the belly button is saying that the influence of this Kabbalah Soul, of the Etzem and Nefesh, is not enough that it determines your mindset or your feelings and your emotional state. It has to translate into action, into even the lowliest part of your being is in line with the divine will. So through you doing that, in wearing tefillin, just physically putting on the tefillin that have straps that dangle down, but more than that, through the meditation that is supposed to arouse, that the divine will has to translate into my action all the way down into my lowest faculties. By you meditating on that and subjugating not just your heart and your mind, but also your physical body and your physical urges to Hashem's will, that achieves that the same thing happens. Hashem, who's your shadow, will do the same thing. So what does it mean? Second last line. So through doing that, it happens in the world as well. Through you bringing Hashem's will down into the lowest faculties, in the world, the divine light will come down to the lowest part of the world. There'll be a revelation of godliness even in the lowest places, the lower half, the lower entities of the world. That the divine light will shine down all the way into the physical. Because the noisif l'zeh b'tefillin nimshach hagilui de'echad cholo gam b'klaf hagashmi the b'krishma gilui ta'vaya echad hu ba'adam ha'kayra krishma mash'en k'b'tefillin hamshachi gam b'klaf hagashmi. Because apart from the fact that with tefillin there's something unique about tefillin, specifically about tefillin more than other mitzvahs. In tefillin, the Hashem echad, the oneness of Hashem, is revealed on a physical parchment. Of all mitzvahs, tefillin is a prototype of taking godliness and bringing it down to reveal it in physicality. Why? Because very literally, what is tefillin? Tefillin is writing Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad on what? On a piece of animal hide, on the skin of an animal, a physical piece of leather. That's what parchment is. So taking the oneness of Hashem and expressing it on the most physical, lowly, coarse thing, like a piece of animal hide, there's no greater expression of the revelation of Hashem coming down all the way to this world than that. That's much more than in when you recite the Shema. Because, as it says in the top line, when you read the Shema, so the oneness of Hashem is being revealed. Because you're saying, Hashem Echad, Hashem is one. But where is it being revealed? In a person. A person reciting the Shema. Your mind and your mouth, your consciousness is now filled with the oneness of Hashem. So how far has Hashem's light come? All the way down to a person. That's pretty far. But in Tefillin, the oneness of Hashem has come all the way down, not just to a human being, to an animal hide, to a piece of leather. So the divine light has reached even further down into physicality, into a much more coarse and physical thing. And brackets, that's why we mentioned earlier that all the mitzvahs of the Torah are compared to tefillin. Because the whole project of Torah mitzvahs, the whole point of it, is to draw down godliness into the physical world. To make a dwelling place for Hashem in the physical. So what greater example, illustration of that can you have than tefillin? Tefillin is the most physical piece of animal hide that you've imbued with this holiness. It's become a holy object. I mean, if you think about it, it's quite weird.
You're saying the straps or the
parchments inside.
So
Also the straps and all. That's all leather. Yeah. But even more so, what makes the whole thing holy? The parchment inside, which is animal hide, made out of an animal hide, with Hashem's name written on it.
What about the Torah scroll would be the same?
Yeah, Torah scroll is a similar thing. But here, because the tefillin is something we wear, we put on,
Right.
So it's a mitzvah, the mitzvah of tefillah. So therefore, it is a strange thing if you think about it, that this holy object that we treat with a lot of respect and sanctity is a piece of leather from an animal. And this is so holy. Why is it so holy? Because it's got Hashem's name on it. And the fact that it's such a lowly thing, it's not human, it's animal, and it's got the divine name written on it, that is the illustration of what the entire Torah is about. So that's how powerful tefillin are. So So that's one level, that's one expression of Tefillin's ability to bring holiness down to the physical. But it goes even further than that as well. Because apart from that idea, the fourth line after the brackets, that the revelation that Tefillin achieves is such that it even affects those who are opposed to holiness. When you say the Shema, so the Shema reaches you, which is a human being. You're open to holiness. When you put on Tefillin, so Tefillin reaches even an animal hide, which has nothing to do with holiness. But more than that, we're saying now, Tefillin not only impacts a physical object that is not innately holy, it even affects something that is opposed to holiness. Tefillin has the power to transform even an enemy of holiness. It even affects them.
When they wear it?
What is it? We'll see in the next sentence. Because there's a pasuk, there's a verse in the Torah that says, that all the people of the earth will see that Hashem's name is called upon you, and they will fear you. That's what the verse says. The people of the earth will see that Hashem's name is called upon you, and they will fear you. That's what Hashem says to the Jewish people. What's this talking about? V'omer Razal. So the Gemara says, El Tefillin Shabarosh. This is tefillin, referring to the head tefillin. That when your enemies see that you've got tefillin on you, that Hashem's name is called upon you, they will fear you. So what does that mean? That the power of tefillin is such that it even impacts those who need to fear you because they're your enemies, because they oppose you, because they oppose holiness. Even those people will be affected by tefillin. So not only is the hide of an animal, which is neutral, it's not holy or unholy, but it's not particularly spiritual. Not only is the hide of an animal impacted by tefillin that it becomes holy, but even an enemy, which means somebody who opposes holiness, when they see tefillin, they fear you. They're subjugated. It impacts the enemy.
Did they used to go to war wearing tefillin?
Yeah. I mean, they didn't necessarily in battle wear it, because you're not allowed to take your mind off tefillin. You can't be distracted from tefillin while you're wearing it. But it's saying here that the nations that may want to do harm to you by putting on tefillin, they're feared. This was something that the Rebbe before the 6 Day War emphasized greatly, that people should put on tefillin publicly. That was when the tefillin campaign began. And the Rebbe particularly said that the soldiers in the Israeli army should be encouraged to put on tefillin, because putting on tefillin makes the enemy melt in front of you. So it's one of the strategies of war is to put on tefillin. So the Rebbe is showing here, look at the impact of tefillin. Even an enemy will have fear, respect, will be in awe of you. They're affected by tefillin. That's how deeply the tefillin affects this world. And now the Rebbe says, and it's even more than that. Not only that, but more. It doesn't just say that the nations of the world will see your tefillin and be scared. It says that they will see that the name Havaya, Yudke Vavke, is called upon you. That's what they'll see, which is referring to the tefillin. But through the tefillin, then your enemies will see that Hashem's name is called upon you. What does that tell us? Because the nations of the world, even those who do have a connection to God, who believe in God, their relationship with Hashem is only on the level of Elikim, which is Begematria Teva, has the same numerical value as Hateva, nature. Meaning, the non-Jewish concept of God is that of the God who is the God of creation. Hashem as He is the creator of the world. Right? If you look into any non-Jewish philosophy or speak to any theologian within the non-Jewish world, what is God? The creator of the universe. That's what He's defined as. We agree with that. We say that too. But Torah reveals a level called Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hashem as He's above and beyond the universe. That's something only Torah has, and that's the relationship the Jewish people have with Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. The non-Jewish relationship with Hashem is with Elokim, Hashem as Creator. And that's their perception of Hashem. But they do not have an awareness or a connection with Yud Kei Vav Kei, the name of Hashem that relates to Him as He is above the world, beyond the world. That the non-Jewish nations don't have a relationship with. They don't talk about that level. They're not relating to that level of Yud Kei, of Hashem, or Yud Kei Vav Kei. Like it says in the Torah, Parah says, Lo Yudati Savaya. I don't know Yud Kei Vav Kei. Even though Parah spoke about Elokim, that level he did know, but Yud Kei Vav Kei, I don't know. Like that's not my thing. I'm not connected to that level. So generally speaking, the non-Jewish nations, as they relate to Hashem, is the name Elokim. But Yud Kei Vav Kei is something that we have a relationship with through Torah, but they don't have. But through Jewish people putting on Tefillin, Hagilu Davaya should be Yisrael Hamaniach Tefillin, the revelation of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the level of Hashem that's beyond the world, that is achieved through the Jew putting on Tefillin. It's in such a way that even the nations of the world, and in fact the verse says all the nations of the world, which that includes even people who don't have any relationship whatsoever with God, even with Elokim. But all nations, even those nations, they see that the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is called upon you, and therefore they have awe for you. Meaning, they have an appreciation of Yud Kei Vav Kei through us. So what's this saying? It's saying an unbelievable thing, something that we may not have seen in this verse, that the nations of the world, which includes enemies of the Jewish people, it also includes, it says Kol Ha'aretz, it's all the nations of the world, so it includes those who have no relationship whatsoever with Hashem. Through Jews putting on Tefillin, they see that Yud Kei Vav Kei is called upon us. And so there's a level of godliness that they themselves don't have a relationship with. But through us putting on Tefillin, they have awe of us, and through that they see Yud Kei Vav Kei, they see our connection with Yud Kei Vav Kei, and that influences them as well. So what the Rebbe seems to be saying is that Jews putting on Tefillin, not only is that a way to weaken our enemies, those who oppose us, that they'll have awe of us and be too scared to attack. It's more than that. It's even those nations who are not enemies. In fact, they worship God. But their worship of God is only on a certain level. Through the Jewish people putting on Tefillin, we reveal a higher level of godliness that they don't relate to directly, but through us they can relate to. It brings a sense of godliness into the world. And even those nations who don't have a connection with godliness will be influenced by us putting on Tefillin. Why? Why is that so? Because what are Tefillin? Tefillin are those objects that bring down the Shibud Halev V'Mayach, the subjugation of our heart and our mind to the divine will. Not only that, but they dangle down all the way down, even past the belly button, which means they bring that divine light that is higher than Ishtalshalos into Ishtalshalos all the way down to the lowest levels, to the point where the tefillin themselves are a physical object made out of an animal hide, and it's holy. Not only that, but it even influences the outside world. It even influences the enemies of the Jewish people, that they have to have awe for us. Putting on tefillin is bringing down a divine revelation into every level of creation. So the world can't be the same after you've put on tefillin. There's a holiness that the world now relates to.
Is it temporarily? So you have to keep doing it every day?
It's not temporary, because every mitzvah is eternal, but its impact on the world needs an accumulative effect. So it needs to be done by many people every day, constantly. But every time it's done, the world inches higher, like a bit closer to godliness.
Just back to the yoke of heaven, with when someone accepts that, you're saying that affects the mind, heart, and then all the way to the actions. Why wouldn't that make anyone that does that automatically a tzaddik? Well, how does someone that does that sin?
Okay, well, first of all, it doesn't make you a tzaddik necessarily, because accepting the yoke of heaven and subjugating the mind and the heart doesn't mean the mind and the heart have changed. They've been subjugated. They've been controlled. You're controlling your mind and your heart, that I'm not going to chase after my thoughts and my feelings. I'm going to do what Hashem wants. That's a beinoni. And indeed, at the moment that you have Kabbalah oil, so you are behaving on the level of a beinoni. The problem is that you then take off your tefillin, which means the Kabbalah oil sometimes dissipates, and then your own desires and your own thoughts and your own animal side comes back. But every time you have this sense of Kabbalah oil, every time you put on tefillin, either the literal putting on tefillin or the figurative Kabbalah oil, so you've weakened your animal soul somewhat, you've gained a bit of ground on it, and you've brought holiness all the way down as well. In a tzaddik, that would be their constant state, and it wouldn't be a battle where they have to subjugate so much. It would be just a smooth process. Whereas for the rest of us, it's a struggle. But every time we do it, we add a bit of strength.
It's during that time.
It's only yeah. There's a residue, there's a remnant afterwards as well. It affects the whole day. You started your day with Kabbalah oil, so then the whole day is influenced by that. But there are other influences as well that are vying for power. So you now get a bit of appreciation of why the Rebbe made such a big thing out of Tefillin, with this Tefillin campaign. And why if somebody would just put on Tefillin, even if just once, but look what happens, look what it does to the world. The world can't be the same afterwards. Okay, so let's go into Ches. We could connect this in Hagilu de Torah Chasidus with the concept, the historical event of Chasidus being revealed, the Torah, the teachings of Chasidus being revealed. The Chai Elu Yom Haledis the Baal Shem Tov Miyasa Torah Chasidus HaKlalis, or the Admar Azak and Miyasa Torah Chasidus Chabad, because the 18th of Elul, which was the day that this Maimar was said, Chai Elul, is the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chasidus in general, and the birthday of the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad Chasidus. So the revelation of Chasidus also is a reflection of the same concept that we've been discussing. One of the main focuses, one of the main emphasis of Chasidus is that all spiritual experiences need to be drawn down as low and as revealed as possible. It's not enough that godliness should be this removed high concept. Godliness has to be drawn down into the physical and revealed. It has to be out in the open. So the whole idea of Chassidus itself, the teachings of Chassidus, was to take the deepest ideas of spirituality and make them understandable, make them available, and make them practical. It has to affect your practical life. Drawing down above Ishtalshalos into the lowest levels of Ishtalshalos. Like the Alter Rebbe himself writes in the beginning of Shar Yichud B'Emunah, the section of Tanya, that says, there's a verse that says that forever your word, Hashem, stands in the heavens. And the Baal Shem Tov explained this. What does this verse mean, that your word always stands in the heavens? That your word that you said at creation, let there be a heaven, those words themselves, they remain and stand within the heavens to give it life. Right? The Baal Shem Tov explained that when Hashem said, let there be light, or let there be a heaven, or let there be trees, or whatever he said, all those words, the word of Hashem, that is the energy that creates the world. It wasn't just a statement, it was an expression of divine energy. And that energy remains and is still being said now. The heavens exist and the earth exists because Hashem is constantly saying, let there be a heaven and an earth. That's what the Baal Shem Tov explained. Now, the Alter Rebbe quotes this in Tanya. He quotes the Baal Shem Tov's interpretation of this verse. The truth is This interpretation of the verse in Tehillim is found in the Medrash. There's a Medrash on Tehillim, the oral explanations of Tehillim. And on this verse, that your word is always in the heavens, the Medrash says, that's referring to the word of creation, that is always in the heaven to give it existence. So why does the Alter Rebbe quote the Baal Shem Tov? Baal Shem Tov is a relatively recent authority, when the exact same teaching preceded the Baal Shem Tov by 1,000 years more. It's already taught in the Medrash. Why would you quote the Baal Shem Tov? So Mikol Makom Kosev Admor Zaken or Pirush Baal Shem Tov Zal. Nevertheless, the Alter Rebbe quotes the Baal Shem Tov as being the source of this teaching, instead of quoting it in the original source, which is the Medrash. So why? This is another page. So why indeed?
So what's the difference between the two? The Medrash and
It's the same. That's the thing.
same thing, yeah.
So why are you quoting the Baal Shem Tov? It's from the Medrash. So one of the explanations is this: Baal Shem Tov Pirush. The Alter Rebbe says that the Baal Shem Tov Pirush explained, or Fananda Gespräch, he spread this teaching. Hagili Zeh Sheyiv Yudul Kol. Top of the next page. That it's not that the Baal Shem Tov invented this teaching. He spread it. He brought it down. He made it something that everyone needs to know and everyone needs to relate to. In other words, it's true. It says somewhere in the Medrash that the word of Hashem that created the world is constantly within creation maintaining it. It says that idea in the Medrash. But until the Baal Shem Tov came around, it was a quote somewhere in the Medrash. The Baal Shem Tov made that into a central concept, into something that everyone needs to know, into something that became real and palpable in front of your eyes. That the word of Hashem is constantly bringing existence into existence. So the Alter Rebbe knew the Medrash. In fact, the Alter Rebbe himself in the Likutei Torah quotes the Medrash. Doesn't quote the Baal Shem Tov. But in Sharif of Emunah, he quotes it in the name of the Baal Shem Tov to teach that it was the Baal Shem Tov who spread this idea, who made this idea a central concept. And that's really all of Chassidus. Almost every idea in Chassidus you can find in earlier sources. In the Gemara, in the Medrash, in the Zohar at least. Somewhere you can find almost every concept in Chassidus. But what Chassidus did is it made it into something more clear, more brought down to earth. Once the Frierdiker Rebbe was visiting Germany somewhere, I believe, and he met with a Jew, or I think it was a rabbi from Germany, who had not really been exposed to Chassidus. And they were sitting in a hotel lobby together. And this German rabbi said, I don't understand, is Chassidus new, something new? Is there anything that Chassidus is teaching that we didn't know already before? If it is, so then what makes it Torah? If it's new. And if it's not, so then what's the big deal of it? Either if you're coming with new ideas, so then who says it's Torah? And if there's no new ideas, so then we've got it already. Why are you making something out of Chassidus? So the Frierdiker Rebbe sitting there in the hotel lobby pointed to the corner of the room. There were decorative pieces in the corner, along the walls, figures and sculpture, whatever. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, "Do you see that? Did you ever notice that? Do you see how beautiful those designs are? Like, it's just like a part of the background, really. But if you look at it, there's these beautiful designs all along the wall there." And this rabbi is saying, "Why are you changing the subject?" And so the Frierdiker Rebbe says, these things were always in the room, but until somebody points it out to you and allows you to look at it and examine it, you don't appreciate these things, even though they're there all the time. So Chassidus also took things that are written in the Torah already. They've been there for thousands of years, but no one noticed them. It says somewhere in a Medrash something, but nobody noticed or saw the beauty or the fullness of these ideas. Chassidus comes and hones in on these certain concepts that need to be emphasized, particularly now in this time of history, and makes them understandable, makes them real, brings them alive. So here as well, the Medrash said that Hashem's voice is in the heavens. No one ever noticed that Medrash as being so important. The Baal Shem Tov says, no, do you know what that means? That means that the world is completely dependent on the divine word to exist. There's no separate existence for the world other than the divine word that is behind it. If Hashem would not continue to energize the world by saying creation into existence, it would not exist at all. and therefore every detail in creation must be with Hashgacha Pratis, with divine intent and divine purpose. Because there can be nothing that Hashem is not recreating, and Hashem is not personally involved in. So, the Medrash said it, but the Baal Shem Tov spread it. And that's why the Alter Rebbe quoted him. So that's what the Baal Shem Tov did. He brought attention to these things. He spread these things. But then there was a further step that Chassidus developed, and that was with the Alter Rebbe. So the Baal Shem Tov, who was born on Chai Elul, brought these ideas into focus. But then the top line, V'admar Azakim, but the Alter Rebbe did something further. Himshich ze b'seichel. The Alter Rebbe brought it into intellect. Meaning, sheyiyeh l'tehillah l'shem u'sifaras koyal Chabad, v'ad shezeh yiyeh musag gam b'seichel l'nefesh b'hamis. That what the Alter Rebbe did is he brought it down so it should be understood by your intellectual faculties, chachma binu das. And meaning, the Alter Rebbe actually explained these concepts. If you look at the Baal Shem Tov's teachings, they're very brief. Little paragraphs, bursts of inspiration, like amazing ideas, but just like blurted out in these like one-liners. And whereas the Alter Rebbe, when you look at his teachings, they're long, very long, pages and pages. So you'll sometimes have a little teaching of the Baal Shem Tov that took 3 lines in the Baal Shem Tov's quotes, and then the Alter Rebbe explains it over 10 pages, and in depth, and explains it, and questions it, and pulls it apart until it's very clear to your mind. The Baal Shem Tov gave the revelation. The Alter Rebbe then brought that revelation down and explained it, made it understandable, so your mind can actually appreciate it. And so, like for example, this concept that the Baal Shem Tov just said one line, that the divine word that created the world remains in the heavens constantly to keep it alive. The Alter Rebbe made a whole sefer out of that, Shar Yichud B'Emunah, about the divine energy in creation. It's a whole book on that concept, really. And many other memorim on it, to explain it, to understand it, to make it make sense. So you get it with your mind. Gam seichel de nefesh b'hamis, even the seichel of your nefesh b'hamis. Meaning, your nefesh elokis, your divine soul has seichel, and your nefesh b'hamis has seichel. The difference is, the nefesh elokis seichel, the intellect of the divine soul, appreciates divine concepts, is into these type of things. Your animal soul's intellect just wants things to make sense, but is not necessarily into spiritual stuff. But the way, when you learn Chassidus, it talks in logic, it talks in rational words, it explains things. What you're talking about is totally irrational. You're talking about soul, you're talking about the divine word, you're talking about things that are completely beyond you, but in a way that you're understanding. So you're sitting there, just as a human being with a human mind, understanding these divine concepts. So we could learn a whole mimer where we discussed and understood. You understood the mimer? Yeah, I understood it. What are we talking about? The light that's above creation coming into creation through putting on tefillin. And you understood it perfectly. Then we say, light? What light? Like, what's that light? What is it? Divine light. We haven't got a clue. We don't know what divine light is. We have no idea what it means that divine light comes into creation. And yet, we've discussed it and understood it and grasped it in a way that you can just talk about. So we're talking about things that are totally beyond our understanding, in a way of understanding. That's something that the Alter Rebbe achieved. That we should be able to converse and understand with our human minds these divine concepts. Things that innately, essentially, they're not understandable, but we relate to them. Our minds relate to it. And so what the Alter Rebbe was able to do was to take these concepts and make them relatable to our mind, to our nefesh b'hamis. Not only that, but vafilu b'sichlim shel elish ayu lifnei shalomdu inin zeminim. The Alter Rebbe made it in such a way that even somebody who before they learned Chassidus, they were a non-believer, they were a heretic. They didn't believe in this stuff. You could learn the Alter Rebbe's teachings and understand it, and that makes sense. It could even convince you. It could turn you around. The Sitcha Elyon al Kol Hagoyim, to bring out the power of the Jewish soul, that even somebody who was disconnected can reconnect through learning Chassidus. That's something that the Alter Rebbe drew down. So the same concept as Tefillin, taking the light that is above Ishtalshus, it's completely beyond, and bring it all the way down to the lowest level, That's what Chassidus is. Taking the light, the divine Torah, and making it understandable all the way down to even somebody who didn't believe this could actually relate to it and understand it. It can relate to us. That's the power of Chassidus. Okay, stop there.
Yeah.